Have we seen Shohei Ohtani in Angels uniform for the very last time? Let's discuss. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and review. Thank you to everybody that has done that so far. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat over 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, aka the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
My name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
You know, we've been fans of this team for a real long time. Man, it's just hard to turn it off. I know things are not great right now, and I'm sure if you're a Locked On every day and you're here tuning in at this point of the season, just know that we appreciate you. We're grateful for you, and we're so glad that you're here to talk Angels baseball with us every Monday through Friday. It's our second season here, soon to be third season, Mike. Once the new season fires up, baby, we're all about it. So we're excited about that. Hey, on today's show, the Guardians unlocked something within Lucas Giolito. How did that happen, and why couldn't the Halos do it? Plus, why have the Rays been able to win without two of their biggest stars, and the Halos haven't? A lot of other teams did this, and the Halos could not on today's show. But first, Mike, we need to get into the end of Ohtani with the Angels. Is this the end? Is this the last we've seen of him in an Angels uniform? Now, I know he's in the dugout and he's wearing Angels gear, but he's not on the field in an Angels uniform. Right. Is this going to be the end? What do you say?
Yeah, let's talk about that. But first, let's just bring some more clarity, John. He was not in Japan. He was in the dugout, as you mentioned. He was helping Zach Neto with his swing all weekend long.
He went to Japan and said hi to his mom and dad and came back.
Listen, he is the unicorn. Maybe he's got a teleportation device or something like that where he can just jump from one. It's the world between worlds. That's what it is. He's been watching Ahsoka.
He's a Jedi.
Here's Shohei's final stats for batting and for pitching in 2023. Had a fantastic year. 304 average, 44 home runs, 95 RBIs, a 412 on base percentage. He walked a lot this year, John, and had a lot of intentional walks. A lot of it had to do with who was batting behind him, and they just kind of skipped over him. Matt Chapman was right. He's the only guy that can freaking hit. Everybody else couldn't hit in the lineup. He had a 654 slugging percentage and then a whopping 1.066 OPS and an OPS plus of 184. The average, of course, is 100. So Shohei is 1,000,000% better than the rest of the league. That's right. What that stat says, right?
Technically, 85% better.
Unreal.
Than the rest of the league. And let me remind everybody that, elite is like a 300 average, 400 on base, 500 slugging. And here's Shohei with above 300, a 412 on base, and a 654 slugging. So just good grief, man. And all of those stats came in 135 games at the plate. Now, pitching-wise, he went 10-5. He had a 3.14 ERA in 23 starts, 132 innings pitched, 167 strikeouts, and a 1.06 whip. That's walks and hits per innings pitched. So giving up either one walk or one hit per inning. That's pretty darn impressive. His total WAR on the season stands at 10.1. That means the Angels won 10 more games just by virtue of Shohei's presence alone, whether that was pitching or hitting.
You mean it could have been worse?
Oh, yeah.
Thank God for Shohei Ohtani, right?
Wins above replacement. That means if there was a replacement player there and they're 0, just because you have Shohei, you get 10 more wins.
Oh, listen, Angel fans know all about having players that have 0 WAR because we saw 6,500 of them last season.
Or less than. Yeah.
Or less than, right, Johnny? Now, Mike, those numbers are great, right? Like those pitching numbers. It would have been great to see him pitch more, obviously, because he was well on his way to a really great season on the pitching side. And not that he didn't have a great season. And of course, as a hitter, he was fantastic. So, Johnny, MVP secured, or is there a threat to Shohei not winning the MVP in 2023?
100% secured. In fact, StatHead, who does baseballreference.com, if you're nerds like Mike and I, you can go on baseballreference.com. They have a new versus finder. And when you find the versus finder, you can pick 2 players and compare their numbers for the year side by side. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. With Ohtani, I compared him to Seager, far and away.
Yeah.
Higher than Corey Seager. I know there's been talk lately about, could Corey Seager get? No, he's not going to get it.
He's having a great year. He's having a really great year. Not an Ohtani year.
Kyle Tucker might be the next in line behind Shohei Ohtani, but Shohei outweighs him in most offensive categories, and he's a pitcher, Mike.
Yeah.
So Shohei didn't have to play the last month of the season, the last 2 months, really, and he's going to be the AL MVP. So that's pretty darn impressive at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. The question, Johnny, that everybody's wrestling with is, have we seen the last of Ohtani with the Halos? And if we have, his last 3 years have been so phenomenal. 635 plate appearance offensively, a 277 average, a 379 on base, a 585 slugging percentage.
Let's go.
He averaged 41 home runs, 98 runs scored, 97 RBIs. He had a 156 weighted runs created plus and had a 405 expected WOBA. And so he just was fantastic. But that was just on the offensive side. In the last 3 years, Johnny, those pitching numbers are better than phenomenal, aren't they?
Yeah, he's averaged 143 innings pitched per season. He's averaged a 2.84 ERA, so under 3 in the time.
Yeah.
And again, this is MVP Elite Ohtani 2021 through 23.
Yeah.
A 3.23 FIP, that's what he can control. If you removed defense from the factor, 153 ERA plus, which is kind of like that OPS plus, essentially 53% better than league average pitching. He averaged 181 strikeouts, a 31.4% strikeout rate.
Wow.
And a less than 200 batting average allowed at 197. Now, according to the Baseball Reference WAR, he's had a 9.5 wins above replacement in the last 3 years. And then Fangraphs has him at 8.8 FWAR. So again, that's
his average.
That's his average
every year.
Right? Exactly. Now, since 2018, Mike, Ohtani's won the Rookie of the Year. He's a one-time MVP, soon to be 2 times, should be 3 times.
Yep.
A one-time Silver Slugger winner, a 3-time All-Star. Good grief, man. Look at the accolades he's received in his short tenure with the Angels. Whatever happens, we're grateful to have seen one of the greatest players of all time play this game and see it live and see it whenever we wanted to get down to a game and watch him play. So just at the end of the day, if this is it for Shohei, I mean, good grief, he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest Angels of all time.
Johnny, what's your gut tell you? Is he back? Is he going somewhere else? What are you thinking?
I mean, if I'm going to be realistic, I don't think that he comes back, just given the circumstances of the Angels, given the disarray in the organization. I mean, look, I don't fault Shohei for the miscommunication that happened on Friday at all, because Perry Minasian even said he was just planning on, he thought there was a chance to get his procedure that day, so he packed up and thought that was going to be it, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just the cherry on top, Mike, of the dysfunction in the Angels organization that Shohei has never been part of or been a problem about, right? When it comes to the dysfunction in this organization, he's the last one to place blame on here. And I say that because there's some people who felt like, well, he should have said something. He should have did this, should have did that. The Angels should be the ones who know this stuff because it's their player. They're paying for this. Like, good grief. Like, I mean, talk about incompetence. I mean, it's the same thing. Oh, I didn't know that players were being supplied with illegal drugs. I didn't know players were being supplied with really our employees. So again, it's another one of those situations where, oh, gee, I didn't realize he thought he could get the procedure that, you know what I mean? It's like the Angels are just in disarray. So obviously, as an Angel fan, I hope that he can return. On the other hand, I am interested to see what the team looks like in a new era, I guess you could say. They're probably not going to be very good, but you and I have said we will watch bad baseball games or losing baseball games if it means these guys have a chance to grow and become something. And I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to if Shohei decides not to come back. The biggest thing for me is I just don't want him to go to a team that I hate, like the Mariners or something like that.
Yeah.
Like even if he went to the Dodgers, I know Dodger fans would be annoying as all get out, but I mean, he's not in the American League. It doesn't bother me any.
Right. Yeah.
But what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to stick with my gut, John. I think he comes back. And,
really?
And I know that it seems unreasonable and unrealistic and, he wants to win and all that stuff. I get it. I get it. And so bring all the clown takes and the hate. I get it because I sound ridiculous as I say that out loud. I just think that there's something about Shohei that says, I want this team to be successful and I want to be the guy that makes them successful. And so I can see him re-signing. I think that the contract is going to have some outs in it, some clauses in it. I think that because of the injury, he might have like he signs a long-term deal, but can get out in a year or can get out in 2 years. He's not stuck. And so I think that that's going to be the thing that brings him back to Anaheim. If he can sign those type of clauses, if he can sign a deal with those type of clauses, I think that brings him back. But if he wants a deal where he can, I'm locked in for the next 8 to 10 years, then I think he does go to another team. But again, something in me says like this guy is Steph Curry and not Kevin Durant. I think he wants to stay. I think he wants to build. And if he goes somewhere else, I'm with you. I hope he doesn't go to a team that we dislike. As long as he doesn't go to the Mariners, that'd be awesome. And if they follow the playoff race, that would be even better. So I just, there's something in me that says he re-signs and he comes back and I will take all of the hate as somebody hears this comment, because I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds unreasonable. I don't have any other reason except for I think he's just somebody that's like, I want to make this work. I want to be the leader here. I want to make this thing actually be successful. So I could see him coming back because of that.
I'll give you a little bit here and I'll say your best guess is as good as anybody else's best guess, Mike, because at the end of the day, Shohei's going to do what's good for him. He's going to make the decision himself. So everybody's saying, he's not coming back to Anaheim. You don't know that.
Right.
You don't know that.
Right.
Like, yes, he says he wants to win. Yes, he wants to play on a contender, but you still don't know where he's going to sign unless you spoke to him and found out yourself.
Everybody's filtering it through what they would do. And that makes sense, right? It's what they would do. Right. And so I think there's something about him, man. I'm probably going to be 99% wrong here. I'm going to lean on that 0.1%, right? I'm going to lean on, I think there's something in him. And I think he comes back. So we'll see. We will see. I'm looking forward to it.
Shall see. It'll be a fun offseason here at Locked On Angels. Hey, the Angels are playing the Rays today in Tampa Bay at 3:40 Pacific time. Did you hear? They're getting a new stadium, Mike. How about that?
I heard that.
Like
that's
2028. That's awesome.
About time.
I know. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast in the old stadium, the current stadium, with SiriusXM on the SXM app. You just got to search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, what did the Guardians do to unlock something within Lucas Giolito? What was it, and how come the Angels couldn't do it? We'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by LinkedIn Sales. Listen, I know it's a struggle sometimes to close deals. Cold outreach is hard. It feels like you're wasting your time, both you and the buyer, at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data about who they're trying to sell to. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that actually translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes. LinkedIn Sales is something that is something that we're talking about here, and they created something called Deep Sales, and they've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try the LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get 60 days free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Go to linkedin.com/lockedon today to get started.
Thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, you can join us for Fan Mail Friday, of course. We take in your questions as always. In the meantime, the Angels are playing the Rays at 3:40 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels.
Johnny, what is it about other teams being able to win when they don't have their key players in? What is it about other teams that the Angels just can't figure out? Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Tampa Bay, we're playing them. They currently sit second in the AL East, and they're leading in the wild card. they have faced two very difficult losses this season with players. On the pitching
They've only
side,
lost 2 games? Oh, players. My bad.
players.
Yes.
On the pitching side, they lost Shane McClanahan, who is
Mhm.
fantastic. He's going to have Tommy John hurt his elbow. And then on the batting side, they lost Wander Franco, who's being investigated for an inappropriate relationship with a minor. So since they've lost those two guys, listen to this record. Tampa is 26-13 since losing Shane McClanahan, and they're 21-9 since losing Wander Franco. These two guys are huge pieces to the team.
Mm-hmm.
They're big stars, and yet they're still winning. So why? Why is that happening? And how come the Angels can't figure out what the Rays have figured out?
Mike, I've had this conversation a lot over the last few days, and this is how I will put it. Teams like the Rays and the Braves and the Dodgers, they have all dealt with losing players or lost people to injury, things like that. And the reason why they're still successful versus the Angels is because they have the development system in place. They're able to bring up Dodgers. I think they have like almost an entire rookie rotation right now, Mike. It's insane what those guys are doing. The same goes for Braves. They've got a lot of homegrown talent there. I know they traded for Olsen and they're the catcher from the A's, who's now on the Braves now, Sean Murphy. They have traded and paid for young talent. And I think that when you think about the Angels, I think from 2011 and onward up until about maybe Reed Detmers, which was Billy Epler's last draft year in 2020, you can consider that decade of draft picks nothing. It's as if the Angels didn't pick a first-round pick. Now, I know Taylor Ward's among that, and he has finally started to come around in the last season or two. I know Joe Adell is in that, and I think Joe Adell just needs time to prove himself at the majors. I think he worked a lot to improve in the minor leagues this year, which you and I preached all along. Give that boy a full season of minor leagues so that he can work on the things he needs to work on and come back up when he's better. And now he's back with the team, and maybe we'll see him in today's game. Matt Thaiss is another one who is fine. He's been an okay catcher this season, and obviously he's moved around some. But the last decade of draft picks, again, prior to 2020, a wash. Like you said, they're a wash. And when your draft picks are a wash, you don't have anybody coming up through the system to help you out. And the problem with the Angels is that for the last 10 years, maybe even 13 years since 2023, they've been trying to win by building a team of free agents while surrounding guys like Trout and Ohtani and maybe like Walsh and their starting rotation and sometimes David Fletcher, right? They're trying to bring in a team of free agents and put together a winning team that way. We saw it with the Mets. We saw it with the Padres. Doesn't always work.
Yeah.
It didn't work for us, not because it wasn't working. I mean, there were times where it was working. Sometimes they were just floating around 500. Sometimes they, got up above 500 pretty far. And then once the injuries started happening, nobody to really step in because all the depth pieces were gone too. So what I have kind of concluded here is that the last 10 years of draft picks have been a wash, to be honest.
Yeah.
And Perry Minasian is finally starting to do that. Perry Minasian is really good at building from the ground up. But we know that his free agent picks, they've not been great.
Right.
Tyler Anderson, not great. Drury, oh yeah, I'll give you Drury. I think he was a great pickup, right? So he's been hit and miss with his free agent picks since he started. I mean, Jose Quintana and the relievers that he got, right? Not great, but building from the ground up, he's done pretty well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you hit the nail on the head because this actually is a conversation that has layers to it because we've talked about culture before. And I think that we have seen how the Angels have really struggled with what sort of culture do they actually have? What sort of culture do they want? And I think it's been a mix and match of all different types of organizations because they brought in all different types of players who are used to all different types of approaches. And that's what we've kind of received in Anaheim. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of different perspectives. And we felt that on the field with this team. And so I think that if this team actually really focuses on drafting well, and we've seen that in the last couple of years, those players have had an impact. There could be a great future ahead of us. And I also believe that if Shohei doesn't come back, it might actually be a really good thing for this team to be who they want to be built in Perry's image, to be like Zach Neto, to be like Logan O'Hoppe, to be like those types of players, and not have to worry about, well, he's the guy, we want to honor him, or Trout's here, we want to honor him. I don't think Trout's going anywhere, but I think that's really what's happening with this team. I think that could really change the culture of this team. Another piece that I think really plays into this too is when you talk about getting free agents and getting people into this team to try to win, we just don't have any pitching. And that's what the Dodgers have done really well. It's what Tampa Bay has done really well. Yeah. And even last year, I know the pitchers were better, but they still weren't helping us win. And I think that's been the biggest issue for the Angels for the last 10 years. So we haven't developed any pitchers. We haven't looked forward to anybody coming up. We've been excited about certain players that have come up, like Reed Detmers, but we really haven't had pitchers that could come in as a starter or as a reliever and shut things down. And so, this conversation is really layered. It starts with who we're drafting, and we don't have replacement players for those players that leave. We're trying to hodgepodge a team together. And when you look at Tampa Bay, they just have next man up because they've developed somebody who has been so good, and he's been waiting to play. And when somebody goes down, they're ready to go.
Yeah, you look at the Angels of like the 2000s, and you've got homegrown guys like Weaver and Lackey and Howie Kendrick and Eric Aybar, and then you supplement that with a Torrey Hunter. You bring in a free agent like that, and it supplements the team that you have, and that's really what's been missing from the Halos in the last decade.
Today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but often global supply chains are really fragile, and things like pandemics and natural disasters and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment that you need. And that's why Jace Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of their board certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate for you. Then they send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies, where your Jace order will be filled and mailed to your home directly. And not only that, you can send messages to your physician and get answers to treatments that have to do with the medication that you've received at any time. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. You can save up to $360 by getting this life-saving case with antibiotics for you with Jace Medical. Plus, we're going to add on $20 off by using the promo code Locked On. You're welcome. When you go to jacemedical.com, that's JASE medical.com.
Mike, we finally got to see the moment we've all been waiting for, and that's somebody who was on the Angels from the trades that we made that got waiver wired do well for another team. And so we were all kind of dreading that. Now, Hunter Renfroe was DFA'd yesterday by the Reds. Lucas Giolito, on the other hand, struggled for the Guardians, and then his last two starts have been very, very good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What happened there?
Yeah, so his last two starts, Giolito made an adjustment on his slider, and the Guardians decided that they wanted to trade velocity for depth. Now, I want you to pay attention to this because you mentioned something earlier this year about Aaron Loop that I think ties into this. So his slider in his last two starts with the Guardians, which they've been really good starts, he's won one, lost one. His slider was clocked at 83 miles an hour, and Giolito had a negative 1.5 IVB, which stands for induced vertical break, which basically measures the pitch break. Giolito's slider was falling or breaking at a negative 1.5 angle from his release point to when it got to home plate. Simply, the pitch was moving down at a better rate than an average slider in the MLB in his last two starts. So with the Angels, he actually had a different rate that was happening. He was throwing his slider at 85.5 miles per hour, so almost 3 miles per hour faster. And then his IVB was positive 1.5, which means that the pitch wasn't moving down after he released it as it was heading to home plate. It was moving up. And that's why you saw a lot of home runs. That's why you saw Giolito get hit really hard as an Angel.
Interesting. So it's like the spin is giving it like a vertical move. It's funny to me that the slider velocity is down with the Guardians because the Angels were able to identify that with Reed Detmers, and Detmers pitched much better after he started taking some miles off of his slider. So that's interesting. So tell me what is it about the Aaron Loop conversation that I brought up? I'm interested to hear that.
When they were teaching Giolito, hey, do this and let's slow it down a bit, they also added, we need you to extend a little bit further. We need you to extend your arm a little bit further. That actually changed the rotation of the ball.
Okay.
So when he was throwing the ball with the Angels, it rotated from 10 to 3. Think a clock, 10 to 3. That's how it was rotating. But when he's throwing it now with the Guardians, it's rotating from 8 to like 2. So it's almost oblong. It's
like
almost
tilted.
It's tilted a little bit.
Okay.
And it all has to do with something you talked about. Extension. Actually reaching your hand all the way out instead of letting it go and short arming it. It's reaching out. And if you're on the YouTube side, I can't talk about it without actually doing it. But
that's how all baseball conversations go.
He's reaching out, and he's actually at the end, he's snapping it off, and he's fully stretched out. Johnny,
okay.
You figured that out with Aaron Loop.
Yeah.
The Guardians figured that out with Lucas Giolito. What are the Angels doing?
Plain and simple, Mike, they need to hire us for these metrics and data and analytics because, when we were talking about Aaron Loop, I noticed that he was struggling with his sinker. And I looked at his most successful years where his sinker was pitched really well.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the ball was falling short of home plate recently. So if you just extend your arm out a little longer and extend your whole body out from the pitcher's mound toward home plate, then that ball is going to fall a little bit further across home plate.
It goes down instead of up. And that was literally the change that the Guardians made with Giolito. And he pitched really well against the Angels, did lose. But then his next start, he pitched really, really well and struck out 12. It was because his slider was going down into the zone instead of riding up after he would release it. It was coming down and he was extending.
Yeah, to be fair to the Angels, I'm not sure that I could have looked into Giolito and figured this out.
Don't be fair. Don't be fair to the Angels.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure if this is something like the Aaron Loop conversation. I spent a lot of time thinking about okay, what's changed? What's different? So maybe if I had dove into Lucas Giolito, maybe that's something I could have figured out. But
sure,
at the same time, why is it the Angels can't figure this stuff out? Like they say that they have data and analytics and they're looking at all this stuff and they hire people from Driveline. Well, is it in a back room somewhere? Are you listening to those people? Are you doing anything? And obviously not, because we know that the stuff that they have passed down from the front office is not translated to the field. And for better, for worse, like the script that Phil Nevin was supposed to be using according to, which pitcher you should use when and for how many pitches and which innings, which reliever, that's nonsense. Get out of here with that stuff.
This is the perfect example of how metrics can work and how you can still coach from the old school mentality, right?
Exactly. So it's got to be hand in hand. They can't be one or the other. And you have to use the right data and pass that down to the right people to make stuff like this not happen again.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Rays at 3:40 today. Maybe the Angels coaches can just watch the coaching on the other team and learn from them while we're playing them. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. We'd love to catch up with you there. If you're watching the video, hit that like button, comment below, and make sure you subscribe. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Trouty said that he's going to talk to upper management in the offseason about where the Angels are and where they're going. So tomorrow, we're going to come up with the questions that Mike Trout should ask. And if you want to ask some questions, just leave them in the YouTube comments. If you're watching on the YouTube side, if you're on the audio side, come on over and drop those comments. Let's talk about the questions that Mike Trout should ask GMPM and Artie Moreno tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
When are you selling the team, Artie? That's what I would ask. All right, friends, until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Artie, can you just give me the keys to the team?
I can make us a winner, Artie, please.